in my room.
Well, it's kind of warm here, but I just took the ice pack off my fucking shoulder. So,
Well, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is the Atheist Ranger. This is my March sub hangout. I only have two guests right now. I have.
Grampy Lobster.
Thank you. I was about to say your name again.
I know that's why I stopped you because
Thank you.
It's not that everybody doesn't know that my name is Patrick, but when you have a certain persona and you keep going with it, it's like
I know, but you've asked me before not to, and I'm still trying to catch myself. Of course, we have someone who hasn't been on my channel in a long time. She's going by Iris Flowers now, but she used to go by AJ James.
I killed AJ James.
Well, welcome, you two. How's life treating you?
better rallies are coming after you there, Iris. You'll never get away with murdering like that.
My life, how is it? Today's fine. I spent time with my mother, so I guess that's good, but still going through some stuff, especially with my dad. I'll explain that later.
Oh, yeah. Patrick was just, Grampy was just...
There you go again. If I have to call the FBI on you one more time, dude, you're going to be taken down. I mean, doxing me like that, I mean, it's... I know. Pretty much everybody knows it. I know.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, sorry about that there, Pikachu in the chat. Yeah, I just added you onto the Hangout. But, yeah, I have some rather, at least exciting news for me. Next Wednesday, I'm getting a vasectomy.
You are?
Wow. Yep. Is there a specific reason? Have you given up on ever being a father, or?
Oh, no. Well, first of all, I've never had any desire to be a father. And that's pretty much why
well, that's good,
Yeah,
I support your decision.
Yeah. See, yeah. And that's something that, I've talked to people about this before. When I met my wife, I'm older than her and everything, but by about 17 years. But anyway, when I met her, we were talking about, when we were in the relationship. I'm like, look, God, I hope, I'm going to this thing. God, I hope she doesn't want kids. I hope she doesn't want kids. When we had this discussion, my wife told me, she says, I don't want kids. She goes, because I'm too selfish for myself. She goes, I wouldn't be a good mother. And that's pretty much when I knew I had the right woman, because at least she was honest about it. You know what I mean? A lot of people aren't equipped to be parents, but they end up being parents. And,
all right. Hey, y'all, what's going on?
Hey, Pikachu, the atheist.
Yeah. But
no, it's admirable. If you're getting a vasectomy or just wearing a rubber or something like that. But a lot of people, you see people all the time. They've got kids. They're in their 20s. Their life is shit because they can't, proceed with much because they've got to take care of children. And it just, I don't know.
Oh yeah, there's I have a coworker at work. She's
fuck. Jesus. Sorry about that, y'all. I had something that dropped on the floor.
Okay. Yeah, I have a coworker at work. She's 22 and she has a 14-month-old kid.
Yeah.
Shit.
I mean, you're talking about, if you don't have a family support system, you're talking about daycare. You're talking about, a lot of expenses that keep you from maybe her from continuing education after a while.
Well, I mean, my view was I just told my sister Paige just yesterday. I said, and a lot of people get angry when I say this, but nothing would make me more miserable than being a parent.
Yeah. Well, I was like that. I mean, I'm a father. I should have probably never been a father. Because I really didn't have I wasn't equipped mentally. I was immature and stuff. And in the last 6-7 years, I'm finally having, getting more relationships with my kids. Because things didn't quite work out the way the old family model plan goes.
Yeah. That, and I don't even have patience for honestly most people, let alone children.
Yeah. Oh, I've told that to my kids. My kids are grown, and I told them now. I've had that talk with them. I said, you know, it's not that I don't love you and things like that, but your mother and I should have never had kids. You know.
I guess I'm the lucky one. I'm the lucky one since I'm the gay guy, and I can't, I can't have any kids, biologically unless I have a in vitro gameogenesis or something like that.
Well, either that or some girl tricks you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a drunk night. Some girl tricks you. The next thing you know, she told me she was a. I was wondering why we were doing it this way, but it was dark.
So Pikachu, I have to ask: is there another Mr. Pikachu that we should know about?
Oh, I don't know. I just take my switch my camera off. That's all.
Oh, there could always be another Mr. Pikachu at 1:45 when the lights come on at the bar.
Yeah.
Time to leave for the evening, and you look around. He looks at the other side of that bar at that guy earlier in the evening. Yeah, 2 hours ago, the guy was a piece of shit. Now he looks a little bit better because you don't want to go home alone, do you?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, or three, not even, well, it was a few weeks ago, maybe about half a month ago or something like that. I was in the hospital for like 2 weeks.
Ooh.
I had to get my gallbladder removed and all kinds of other shit. So,
oh, Jesus.
Wow, it must have been all kinds of shit. You were in the hospital for 2 weeks for you.
Yeah, and I had to go through a blood transfusion and all.
Oh.
Well, they had to up our GI tract bleed, so that's what I had, and I had to go through a blood transfusion so I could say fuck Jehovah.
Wow, blood transfusion. I've never had one of those. I might have to get a new shoulder, but
yeah, it practically kind of annoyed me the first time I was in the hospital, and they were doing like, was it CRCPs or some shit where they put a camera, where they put something down my throat to remove gallstones.
Yeah.
And they were asking me like, yo, what religion are you? This and this and this, because they wanted to say, to follow up that damn Jehovah's Witness, blood transfusion crap. And I was like, I'm a non-believer, fucking that. You can just go ahead and do it anyways.
Where do you live that they would ask you that question?
Oh, I live in Louisiana.
Oh, of course.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that is one state that I was stationed at Fort Polk back in the early 80s, and I would never go back. I would drive literally around that state. I don't have any good memories of it. And people go, oh yeah, haven't you been to New Orleans? And I've been to New Orleans. I've been to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
You can get drunk and shit like that, but I go down to Providence or downtown Woonsocket and get fucking hammered, or I can get hammered in my own house if I want.
Basically, it's kind of like this. If you're driving from Dallas to Atlanta or to any other part, you just basically take I-20 straight there.
Look, when I went from Oklahoma to Louisiana when I was in the Army, right, I drove. And my first wife and I, we had our dog in the car, right? Middle of the night. We're doing like 2 hits of acid, and we had like 3 cases of those Miller 7-ounce pony bottles, right? We're going down the road, tripping our asses off, chugging 7-ounce Miller ponies, throwing them out the window. It was a different time, right? We saw Chubby Checker's bus get pulled over at a rest stop by the state police. Then we're pulling to Louisiana. We're up around Natchitoches or something like that. Nacogdoches, or we're on this little tiny fucking road, right? And we have no idea where we're at, right? And we stopped at this gas station, and it turned out to be like a gas station / voodoo shop / let's get the fuck out of here.
Casino and all that shit.
Yeah, and there's like shit in jars and stuff. And I went in there just to ask the guy how to get, if I was on the right highway to get towards Alexandria or Leesville or, in that area.
Yeah.
And this guy just looked at me, right? And I noticed things, and I just said, thank you so much. And I left, and I was trying to get everything back in the car. My dog was trying to take a leak, right? And I'm like, let's get the fuck out of here before somebody's ever seen her.
It's basically like this. my county or parish is terrible, but Arlene's county or parish is probably like the only sane county or parish in the whole state. Because at least they know not to vote for Donald Trump, and the rest of the state is, hardline Trump.
Yeah, no offense, but Louisiana is one of those states where I hope climate change just kills it.
Yeah.
It's so fucking funny. It's so fucking funny because, like, here's the deal. People down here in New Orleans basically know that climate change is fucking up the coastal line, and they know the tide is basically getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But you go to places that are further inland, and boy, they don't even recognize that climate change is even happening.
Yeah,
there's Republicans that recognize it happening, but there's just north of New Orleans, nah.
No, I mean, I was recently arguing with some troll online. Don't ask me why, but I guess he was. He was telling me that he no longer drinks Budweiser because of their immigration stance a while back, and his exact words were to me, and I quote: "I now support an all-American beer like Heineken."
Shit. Well, I will tell you this:
Heineken in America. Yeah. No, it's Lowenbrau that used to be made in America. Okay. I think Heineken is still made in.
I mean, I think I'm not familiar with Heineken because I don't drink it, but I'm pretty sure it's a German beer, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But it's like, I don't know if you remember Lowenbrau, if that's still around. Lowenbrau is a German beer, and the Lowenbrau that you bought in America was made in America, but it was still sold as an import.
Huh. Did I know that?
There was something I was going to say about that thing. Atheist Ranger, remember like about a year or two ago, like Donald Trump had these fucking he still has these fucking military camps along the border where they were basically taking immigrant children and shit too, and then they were having the airlines ship them out to whatever. And then in the middle of it, you had each and every airline say, "We're not going to do this anymore." And then Delta came forward and still supported the president. And I said this to this day: I will fly any other airline other than Delta if I fly on an airplane now.
Well, I think that's most people anyway.
Yeah.
Delta can crash and burn, if you know what I mean.
I actually read recently that Delta had the best on time, best numbers for customers, which is I don't believe because they've never had that.
That's a definite lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm just gonna go ahead and say, running Delta. I mean, you have a better chance of running a fucking paper airplane. Trust me.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever flown Horizon? Horizon is pretty,
no, I've never.
Yeah.
Those little commuter jets, they have,
I always fly Southwest, to be honest.
Oh. I fly whatever airline somebody buys me a ticket to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were basically transporting kids on these goddamn planes because they weren't, they weren't doing the fucking legal shit with the fuck at the border,
Yeah. So
they're basically just kicking out immigrants, dreamers and shit for no fucking, reason whatsoever.
They just detained a dreamer. I don't know if you saw the article. A flight attendant who was a dreamer. She was employed by, I don't know what airline. I forgot what airline she was employed by, but she was supposed to fly to Mexico and fly back, and she was told that it'd be no problem. But when it was time to return to the United States, they held her up for 6 days, right? And she had a legal status. There's people in the military, dreamers that have been in the military that served in the Iraq War, Afghanistan, right? They get deported, I mean, they kept up their end of the bargain. It's not like they're, trying to mooch off people or get over on the government or anything like that. They came here and, served their country. And There, a lot of them, some of them are being deported to back to Mexico. You know, I know a guy years ago. It's actually in the Navy, who was Mexican. He was, you know, of Mexican descent. His family was Mexican. He had never lived in Mexico at all, and he was a United States citizen. And he actually got held at the fucking border one time. Right? He was in the Navy with my dad. Right? He actually, and this was back in the 60s or early 70s. Right? He got held at the border. Right? Because his wallet was in the trunk with some bags that they had or some shit. I forgot what it was. But he got detained, you know. I always thought that was pretty stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, I pretty much hate Republicans now, pretty much. I mean, everything like the Republican Party does is basically unconstitutional to an extent, almost. Except for there's a few times where the Democrats do it, but it's...
Well, when it comes to constitutionality, you know, when people go, "Oh, this is against it," everybody screams, you know, about it's, you know, like everything under the sun, you know. And the fact of the matter is, our founding fathers, you know, had no idea what a lot of problems would have, you know, 200 some odd years, you know.
There was going to be something I was going to say. Basically, if we were following the Second Amendment to the law, then we would not, there would be no legal guns being able to be purchased unless you were part of the National Guard.
Or, a regulated militia. You know,
yeah. And the thing is, this whole idea that everybody says, oh, you can buy guns and all this shit, that wasn't, you know, originally what the Founding Fathers had intended when they put it out.
Yeah,
they put it out for something like a National Guard or something like that.
Yeah, well-regulated militia and stuff. And a lot, but, you know, you got Joe Bob, you know, Billy Bob, or, you know, some guy that just loves his guns and shit. You know, you say, you know, why do you have that? Because of Constitution, right? Anybody that goes, I'm a strict constitutionalist, right? I have literally nothing to say. You know, I'm serious, because there are people who study the Constitution for years, you know, and then you get, and they have talks about it. They discuss things rationally. And what are you watching on TV?
Oh, I had MSN on because there was nothing really much else to watch. I'll turn it down.
Okay.
Yeah, I had kind of low, but that's all right. Yeah, there was an issue earlier like a day or two ago, between Kyle Kalinske and Rachel Middow or something like that, that they were talking about on Secular Talk. Was something. It was something about the Bob Mueller investigation and about how she keeps going on and on about the Bob Mueller shit and about Russiagate and all that crap like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
About that?
Yeah, even though it's been already debunked and shit.
Debunked and isn't how?
Yeah.
Like, there was, are you saying there was or wasn't collusion?
No, well, I'm saying, like, there's so many other things you could get Trump on. You know, you can get him on the bank fraud. You can get him on lying under oath. You can get him on other crap.
Right.
But, you know, it's like, you know, why are you bringing up the most one little thing that, you know, that is basically kind of like not even as important now, but there's like so many other things that you could impeach him for.
Well, that in itself isn't the kind of like how Watergate started.
Yeah.
Right. The crime itself isn't the impeachable thing. It's what happens after. You know.
Yeah.
Because if Nixon, and I keep equating this to Watergate. I mean, I was in junior high when Watergate happened. It was on every fucking TV. It was must-see TV.
Oh.
Back when it was going on. So everybody watched the Watergate hearings. It was on every fucking channel. This is before cable TV, okay? Mm-hmm. Just like they used to play the World Series during school hours. But it's not the fact of what he did. It's how they covered it up. It's how they... Because Nixon probably, if he would have said, yeah, we did this and we fucked up and everything, he might have been censured or something like that, but I don't think he would have had to leave office. But it was the cover-up, you know?
Yeah.
that turned out to be the crime, you know. And with this investigation, you know, people keep saying, "Oh, they're doing an investigation on this, but they're getting all these other people." Well, during the investigation, they found out Bob Flynn, they found out Roger Stone, they, you know, all the other shit, you know. And people are saying that that's unconstitutional. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a crime, it's a crime. You know, if they find it.
Well,
same people that are pissed off about this, like with the Mueller report. Everybody was so when Clinton got what was that report they did on Bill Clinton? Who was Ken Starr? The Ken Starr report. The Republicans, man, they were like, we want to see every bit of this report. We want to see every bit of the report. You know, which basically showed, you know, gave details about how Monica Lewinsky gave Bill Clinton a blowjob with the cigar and the dress and all that shit. But when the tables are turned on the other side, they're like, well, I think we should trust the Attorney General to.
Well, not Grampy, not to harp on it too much, but I think the Republicans already had a presupposed position about Bill Clinton, and they wanted him out of office. Period.
Right.
Before they impeached him.
Well, and that's, you know, a lot of.
It's the same thing with Trump too.
Yeah, it's Watergate all over. You know, it's going to go on for a while.
But the difference between now and Watergate is back then you had more than 80% of the country against Nixon. Nowadays you don't have that.
Not in the beginning. Holy shit! Remember, I came from a Nixon family, right?
Oh,
military Nixon family. Holy shit, they were railroading Nixon, and when John Dean got up there on the fucking stand, oh my God, people were like ready to like crucify him. I mean, I'm serious. And it wasn't till like the middle of the fucking till after people found out about the tapes and what was on the tape that even the Republicans were saying, yeah, we really gotta. But there's still people that defend Nixon to this day. You know, I mean. But he didn't do anything any other president didn't do. You know, he got caught. You know, because they all try to get a one up. Everybody tries to get something on somebody, right? I mean, especially in politics these days. But look how many presidential candidates in the last 3-4 elections have been front runners, and then something comes out, right, that they can't dig out of, right? I mean, that's why if you've ever got a hand job from an old hooker somewhere in Florida, don't ever run for public office. You know.
No.
Oh, yeah, Constitution. What do y'all think about most of these Democratic nominations are calling for the abolishment of the Electoral College, which I fully fucking support, by the way.
I agree with it. I agree with it 100%. Because you look at this, in like the state of Louisiana, you may have like 30 or 40% Democrats that will never ever vote because there's no chance that they can win. And the thing is that if they're mixed with, if you're including all the Democrats versus all the Republicans, then Democrats in deep red states will start to vote in more numbers than before, and will start, going along with the rest, will start being matched with the party because now they got a chance to win something.
Well, and they redistrict everything, all the time.
Yeah.
Favor one person or one party. That's what pisses me off. The only thing about the Electoral College that to me is good is like in states that don't have much of a population, like Montana or Wyoming. That to me would be more of a. It could be a detriment to a state like that. Yeah. But other than that, I think popular vote. Sure, why not? And everything else is a popular vote, right? Why not the president?
Exactly. I mean, it's just, I personally would want a voting system where every vote does matter. And to me, I'm sorry, but unless you live in a swing state, your vote doesn't matter at all in a presidential election.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, if you think like that, then that's how Bill Clinton, or that's how Trump got elected. Because a lot of people were like, well, fuck, man, he ain't going to win. I'm just not going to go vote.
But
and
Yeah, but Ranger's got a point, because you look at this in Louisiana, like I said, you may have 60% Republicans in this state, but because there's an overwhelming majority, the tradition of the state is to vote Republican, and there's an overwhelming majority that will make the state go Republican no matter what, then it's always going to come out where you have 80% in favor of Donald Trump, because you have another 20, 30, 40% of the Democrats that are not voting because they know that they can't win the election here, period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole system kind of stinks.
Yeah.
It's like nobody really wanted. I think the way the whole system is screwy because the way that Bernie Sanders was on a momentum for the last election, right, and the way they kept shoving Hillary at everybody, right? Because I mean, let's face it, if Hillary would have got elected, we would be in the same boat right now we are with Trump. There would be court hearings. Yeah. There would be all sorts of shit going on that people would be calling to impeach. I mean, right now, if I mention anything, if I say, "Oh, Trump," the first thing out of somebody's mouth is, "Oh, Obama," and what about Hillary and those emails and Benghazi and this crap,
and it's the same thing as it was with Bill Clinton. It's all motherfuckers from the Republican Party that hated Hillary since she started dating Bill, and it's which is basically back in the 70s. And then
when they show pictures of Bill and Hillary back in the 60s and 70s, right, as college students do a lot of things in their life. They support things that they don't necessarily support later in life. I mean, I used to support a lot of shit that I find just disgusting now. And but it's college kids, protesting. I mean.
Well, Grampy, there's something else too. The only difference between
Hey Ranger, he can fucking call me Grampy, and you can't. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
See, the thing is that with Hillary Clinton as president, the thing is that we would basically begin Obama 2.0. Yeah. Pretty much. That would be the difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Really, to be honest, Donald Trump, it's like now we're getting almost
a clown car
close to Richard Spencer type of bullshit in the White House. And with Hillary Clinton, it's same centrist bullshit that's been going on for the past 8 years before that.
Yeah. I just miss seeing a president, even a president that I didn't really care for. I miss seeing a president on television or anywhere that, I mean, even George Bush, either one, was more likable or when they talked, even George Bush said weird things, right? You go, that's our president, and stuff. He's an idiot, but, he's our president and stuff. But with Trump, I mean, looked presidential, acted presidential. When foreign dignitaries came to town, they didn't shit on everybody, right? All the time, right? They didn't have rallies after they're already elected, right? Just to stir up fucking people to make themselves look bigger and give themselves a fucking hard-on,
Yeah, and there's something else, too, I noticed. I was actually thinking about this earlier. The thing is that, and I find this with everybody I comment on YouTube and on Twitter and on this sort of shit, because I got a comment I got a reply when I was on a comment that I made with on Telltale's video about AA, and it was just basically an ad hominem attack, and on a comment that was made like a year ago, and I'm like looking at these people are not interested in debates at all. People in the Republican Party, people in this, they're not interested in debates. And the Republican primary debates are just a shit show because nobody's there to debate at all. Everybody's just there to look stronger, look this, look whatever. And then it's the same thing when it goes into the presidential debates. the Republican gets schooled by the Democrat, but it doesn't equal out to anything because, the Republican wasn't even trying to debate because the arguments they had couldn't hold the water on a classical debate. So it's basically like they really need to get a point system in these debates thing and actually score them in the debate and give the person who scores the highest the victory and base it off of logical consistency and scientific accuracy.
Well, when you're dealing with political debates, it's kind of hard to like have a scoring system. It's more or less, letting people decide, because no matter, even if there's a scoring system, somebody's going to say it's not right. Then one side's going to say that they won. It's like YouTube debates, there's literally no point to them because it's a shit show. People will call you a liar. People will rage and, bring up certain points that literally have nothing to do with anything, and then shit on their opponent.
Well, the thing I see with presidential debates, the difference between them and just a regular debate is that you have that percentage that says that they did win. Then whoever won the debate, it's likely they're going to have a longer lasting effects in the polls than just what they had before.
Have you ever
what may happen.
Have you ever watched or listened to the Kennedy-Nixon debate?
No, that was before my time.
Okay. Well, this is like the first televised debate before they would do things like that.
I think I've heard of it though.
Right. People said if they listened to it on the radio, Nixon won in a landslide. But if you watched it on television, Kennedy won by a margin because you could see Nixon sweating and thinking about what he was going to say next. And you saw Kennedy standing there, calm, cool, and collected with a smile on his face. Right?
There was something that brought me about because I've heard about that debate, but the thing is that I think it was something on one of the things I've seen somewheres where they were doing a documentary on the Nixon, Kennedy stuff, and they basically said Kennedy went and did huge amount of preparation for that debate. Basically had all the makeup on, this and that on. Yeah. And all Nixon did was put some sort of like sticky stuff on his face to fucking, look like he removed his beard and shit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because television debates weren't a thing. This was the first one. And, Kennedy, prepared and, and Nixon was the kind of guy that, makeup is for sissy boys and, But yeah. So I mean, a debate. It all depends on which way you're looking from. Which idea you have. Yeah. A lot of times it's your preconceived notions about who's going to win. Unless your candidate really shits on himself.
Yeah.
Oh, who's this?
This is. I was just about to introduce him, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time on my channel. He's been in the chat before, but I think this is the first time he's been on my channel. Compelled unbeliever.
Oh my goodness! It's a fucking honor, sir. No idea who you
are. I have a very small channel. I'm a former fundamentalist, extremist. I read the Bible and became an atheist due to the Bible, and literally, and I know that's a common story, but my channel focuses on fundamentalist bad ideas, things that just don't work.
Oh, you're gonna have to explain some of those to me, then, young.
It's geared towards fundamentalist, as I was. The reason is most YouTube atheist channels are rebuttal channels and so forth, and they directly challenge the science and so forth. As a fundamentalist, frankly, I would have ignored every debate and called every atheist a liar.
Yeah.
So my approach is to use the Bible itself and show its flaws to fundamentalists. So because I was a literalist, and the Bible was inerrant as I was indoctrinated as a very small child.
Well, you know that you were never a real Christian if you
I know.
You were never really a good Christian. You were never a real Christian. You always had. So you coming out now, that's just the lies and pits of hell. You know, you were a demon spawn of Satan. And,
actually, yes, I am. I am. That's a problem right now, that I am possessed with Satan and
aren't we
demons. And I know this because that's what I was taught in church.
Yeah.
In fact, I was even told that as a kid, this is what, I mean, religion screwed me up so much, but I was told as a kid, you know, Satan could possess the preacher, so you've got to really check on your preacher. That was our leader, our religious leader.
Oh, yeah.
But the best person for Satan to possess was our pastor, because Satan is so tricky. And so here I am, like a 14-year-old kid. This is during Satanic Panic time in the 80s. Yeah. Okay. And I'm a kid, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, I can't even trust the preacher. I have to pray and trust Jesus, and I have to read my Bible and all this stuff. Well, and then all these people are running around, well, Jesus did this for me, and Jesus is in my life, and Jesus told me this, and thank you, Jesus. Okay, so I'm like,
I can definitely see you as a fundy. You know, you look like that. You've got that look. You know, if you were pull out a Bible right now, and, you know,
yeah, that's your look.
John chapter 3. You know.
Yes. Well,
compelled.
Yes.
You're basically talking about the people who would have called me a demon, right?
Oh yeah, well, we all are. And the thing is the Methodist Church, the cult I was involved with, and it was very extremist even for Methodists. And the problem is in their doctrine they taught that you have to have a personal relationship with Jesus.
Oh, that's how you're born again, man.
Okay, well, the thing is I was literally taught that the church was there for community and support, but it was a personal relationship with Jesus. And like I was saying, all these people were talking about how Jesus was talking to them and so forth. I happen to have a type of narcolepsy where I dream before I actually literally fall asleep. Wow. So I am dreaming and awake at the same time. So I hallucinate every single day.
So you're a prophet.
And my mother was a schizophrenic. So I knew that I could not trust what anyone said, because when I dream something like something very mundane, like feeding the horses, I say it's the afternoon, I take a nap, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to go do chores. Okay, if I start to dream that I did chores, when I wake up, I may think that I fed them, because it's concordant with reality, because I was awake when I dreamed, because I dream before I go to sleep. And so it is filed into a memory of what actually happened, not like a dream.
Right.
It's filed into a living memory.
Right.
Now, so then I have to think, okay, I fed the goats, I fed the pigs, I fed the giraffe, I fed the chickens. Whoa, shit.
I am so jealous that you have a giraffe.
Yeah, I have no giraffe. So then I know I have to go feed the animals. So when I wake up, there may not be a giraffe in my dreams. I may dream about pigs. I may dream about goats or sheep or whatever and think I fed them all, but I have to literally check after myself, because I don't know if I did it or not. So I look out there, and if the horses are eating, I know I fed them. If not, I have to go feed them. So what my point is, I knew I could not trust my own memories, and that when people say Jesus talked to me, that may not actually be concordant with reality. Just like the way Paul and the prophet Muhammad, they describe what could be hallucinations.
Well, they've actually shown that a lot of plants that were eaten back then were hallucinogenics. It was a part of rituals and stuff. And
now I don't know about Paul, but I'm pretty. In fact, I'm positive. I'm positive that that Muhammad had hallucinations that were probably had something to do with schizophrenia, what have you. In those times when people did have those kinds of visions, they didn't know about psychology or schizophrenic or hallucinations. Right. They were literally talking to God. And I actually had a Jesus experience, or so to speak, a God experience. And I was hallucinating the entire time when I was a child. It did change my life. It made me ultra religious. And the only reason it was about God was because I was indoctrinated with that religion. I was going to sleep. I didn't know that I hallucinated.
Right.
And I had this God experience, and it was real because it filed into my actual cognitive waking memory. So it was real. It was literally real for me, although it was not concordant with reality. It never happened.
Right.
So on my channel, I discuss my hallucinations, but I also discuss the inerrancy of religion, and I try to be very gentle and come from a perspective of a fundamentalist. That being said, every once in a while I have a character called Redneck Atheist and Reverend Faithful, and I do a lot of satire.
I love satire.
Well, Reverend Faithful is really bad, and he's inspired by my cousin, who was a mega evangelist. And
what's the name? I'm sorry. What's the name of your channel?
A Compelled Unbeliever.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just looking it
up. Yeah. If you want to look, if you want to have fun, look up Reverend Faithful. That's my favorite character. And I'm going to do a lot more with Reverend Faithful. But he was actually inspired by my cousin that was a mega evangelist like Peter Popoff.
Oh.
And in the 80s, he did the exact same thing with The Wire with his wife, reading the prayer cards while he was up on the pulpit and saying, and there's a woman, Isabella, and your aunt has the pancreatic cancer, and God is taking care of that need. And then he would leave the stage and take a break.
I hate after working the crowd.
After working the crowd, he would take a 15-minute break on purpose, and this is by design, in order for, like, my friend Isabella and I saw this happen. You know, Isabella is telling everyone, well, there's no way that anyone could know that. And all these people all over the church are just getting fired up and riled up about how he knew all these things that Jesus was telling him. And then he gets back up on the pulpit, and guess what he asked for? Money.
Oh yeah.
Peter Popoff, not to stop you for a minute, Compelled, but there's two things I wanted to say to you. Peter Popoff is still doing stuff right now. I saw this when I was in the hospital. He's still doing bullshit out there.
But he has to pay for his time now.
Yeah. The other thing is you have to be very, very careful with schizophrenia and religion, because it's a double-edged sword, and you can very easily go down the conspiracy road and the whole 9 yards with that sort of bullshit.
I've known a lot of schizophrenics. I used to work as a volunteer at a nonprofit back in Oregon, and even here in Rhode Island when I first came out here, until the politics of it all got me out of it. But in Oregon, I knew a lot of, I won't say a lot, but I knew quite a few schizophrenics who were very religious, right? They would talk to themselves as a third person. And one lady, she thought her and her son were actually prophets, and they would refer to themselves as a third person because that's what God told them to do. They take it wild because when you go through spiritual or recovery type stuff, if you're mentally ill, you know, even if you're a schizophrenic, they say, well, whatever thoughts you have in your mind are yours. So if they're in your mind, they're real, right? To you, if they're real to you, then they're literally real.
Right.
And the shit that would go on in these people's heads, and even before I became a full-fledged atheist and stuff, I would ask him, I'm like, how do you know this is real? Because God told me, you know. Now, my wife happens to be a schizophrenic. She talked to God one time. She talked to God and the Dalai Lama one night years ago. They told her to kill herself and told her how to do it. And they would go, well, that wasn't really God. I'm like, well, how the fuck do you know? Well, because I've talked to God, right? So you've talked to God because you've heard it, but she heard something, and that's not real, you know? Well, God would never do that. God would never
See, I'm very lucky. I'm not actually schizophrenic, although my natural mother was, and my grandmother was, and my stepmother was. But I do have
people were schizophrenic back in the old days. You know, everybody had a crazy Aunt Aggie or some shit like that people like to stay away from because she was weird and she talked to herself.
And the lucky thing for me is I know and understand that this type of narcolepsy, and I understand that I have hallucinations every day. So I know that. And a lot of times, like if I have a conversation with you about, I don't know, Oreos or something that could be concordant with reality.
Yeah. Oreos.
I will never, ever know that conversation did not take place. But at least it's concordant with reality, and I can kind of deal with that. And sometimes I ask my family or friends, you know, did this actually happen? And sometimes I do not know because it is so realistic. I never know to ask. But at least that's concordant with reality. So at the very beginning of my channel, I say it just got real. And the reason is because I am extremely concerned with what is real and what is not real. And God is not real.
Right.
And so that's kind of my angle there. But on my channel, I use the Bible itself because I was a fundamentalist to show and teach. I'm an amateur historian, and I talk a lot about how the Bible was made and the different authors and so forth, and how the Bible it conflicts with itself. It actually I can't think of the term right now. It actually does not, or it actually says different things that are the complete opposites of one another. And the reason I do that, and I'm very gentle, and I'm trying to target fundamentalists here. I want them to go look at the Bible, and they're going to try to apologize their way out of it and say, for example, Jesus said that all sins are forgiven, and he also said that blasphemy is an unforgivable sin. Well, it cannot be both. There's no way it can be unforgivable and not unforgivable. The Bible says that women should keep their mouths shut in church. Yet Paul, in the same book, in the same chapter, or in the same a couple of chapters before, says that women talks about how women are leaders in the church, and the reason that particular problem happened was there was a scribe at a later time that evidently was having a hard time with women speaking out in the church, so he just added in there, women shut up in church and listen to your husband. But it's very likely that Paul himself actually was describing leadership, and Paul was a real person, an actual factual person that did exist. There is a lot of debate, and I actually don't know that Jesus was a historical person, so I am a mythicist.
I mean, even if Jesus really existed, that wouldn't make him God, and that wouldn't make him anything of any.
Exactly, and I deal with that.
There was something when I was in the hospital. I actually did a live stream. The first time I was in the hospital, I was on the live stream with Neil 604 Atheist. And I actually got an interview with him tomorrow on my deconversion story. But yeah, I was talking to them about this thing where I think it is what's his name who played God and whatever, and he did through the wormhole and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. He's doing something on National Geographic with this thing about God or whatever, and he went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and this is the guy who played God and whatever the
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman. He went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and I remember the part where in the documentary, The God Delusion, how Richard Dawkins went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and I was talking to them about, how they can't, how there's no physical way to know that this is, the place where Jesus died at or whatever. And the reality is, even if Jesus' friends, even if he did exist and Jesus' friends did have this, you still have the element where you're talking about a common person dying, and in that day and age, when somebody was common basically died, and they were put into a catacomb. Usually they would have the tomb would basically be in a catacomb or something like a catacomb. That's what I would think. And the name would basically die off. So you would have no physical way of figuring out who died where, who was in what, and all this sort of shit. And the other thing is that when Richard Dawkins went there, he stated he found out that the whole thing of the whole Church of the Holy Sepulchre was based on, stuff that's been passed down from person to person to person, and there's no scientific evidence to support whether it is.
Let me jump.
They believe that is. That's why a lot of people believe it's real because
let me jump in there. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre came from Helena. That was traditionally what is believed to be where Jesus was born, that little cave, that little spot.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Helena was Constantine's mother, and she was a extremist, and she was influenced very heavily by a particular sect of Christians. When she decided to go to the Holy Lands, and if she tripped over a stick, it became a holy relic. And many of these holy relics that she found, and she said, this is that, this is this, and blah, 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 blah. They are still holy relics in the Catholic Church today. But once again, just like you were saying, just because she found a stick doesn't mean it was a piece of the true cross. And the true cross itself, there is enough wood to build a wooden ship. And the church, the Catholic Church, said they came up with a doctrine of multiplication, saying that as these pieces of wood were taken off, it just grew and grew and grew and grew. And that's why there is so much of this cross that, could only be like, I don't know, weigh at the most, we'll say 300 pounds or whatever. And yet there are tons of this cross all over the world.
Well, it's like I said with the deaf part, the problem is, like I said, when a common man from that era died, your name, if you were a common man, you died and you were buried in a grave that was considered a common grave, you basically, everything that was known about you was erased over time, unless there was something written about you that lasted for a long period of time. And it's the same thing for rich people, because there's parts of catacombs where they would have it designated for the common people, and they would have it segregated for the rich people, but they still can't actually name the people who were buried in that catacomb. So,
yes and no. What you're saying is generally correct. However, some people did have names inscribed. The problem with this is when you only have a pool of like 100 male names, or maybe even 200. We'll get generous and say 1,000 names. When you only have a pool of so many names, Joseph, son of John, there's going to be tons of them.
Yeah.
And you cannot determine which Joseph, son of John, it was.
Yeah. And that's the same problem with actual names today. It's a huge problem with names today. If you go on Facebook and you type up even my name, which I won't discuss here, the whole name all the way through, you may find like 4,000 people that have that same name, or maybe not 4,000, but a couple of hundred of them. And in the census, you may have close to 4,000 of them. And the problem is, the government can't keep track of one individual out of 4,000 from have the same goddamn name. They have to have an SSI number.
They're always looking at
my name is David Ledoux, and it's spelled Ladeeau. Now, my grandfather made up that name when he came from Canada.
Oh.
He was French Canadian, and
hey.
The thing is even though he made up that name, if you go on Google, there's at least 10 of us.
Yeah, well, I've heard that name before. I mean,
probably.
So basically,
I live in a French Canadian, a very highly French Canadian Italian area.
I wanted to say something that compelled. So basically, the area where you lived in before the 7 Years' War was part of the colony that was capital was right here in Louisiana.
Stop bringing up Louisiana.
With what you were saying earlier, it just kind of sparked a thing that really bothers me. If you look at the book of Mark, which was the earliest book written, you were talking about Jesus just being a dude.
Yeah.
In that book, he actually was just a dude that was kind of adopted by God. But then when you go to Luke, Acts, and Matthew, he kind of is God-ish, and maybe was the God Messiah sent. When you get to the last book written, which is probably about 60 years after Mark, all of a sudden, Jesus Christ is God. He flat out is God. So you can literally see the evolution of the religion in a very short period, maybe 60-year period of time.
Mm-hmm. There is no evolution.
There was something.
There is no evolution. Being sarcastic.
Oh, yeah.
Evolution is a lie, man. Evolution is a big lie.
Guys, just real quick, I want to welcome someone new. I don't know if he or she has a microphone or not, but welcome Force to the Hangout.
Hey.
May the Force be with you.
Well, there you are, Paul. You're such a fucking comedian, man. God damn it, we can always rely on comedic relief on, man. Or Paul. He's
there was
he's
something.
a youngster.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, guys. Yeah, Force, we can hear you.
Yeah, hi guys. Good. Nice to be here. It'll be interesting conversation. I have some thoughts and feelings of my own, but carry on with the thread you're on.
I'd like to hear them. I'd like to hear what you're thinking.
Yeah, go ahead.
Me too.
I just like your lighter on your hand, man. That's cool. I like that.
Oh, nice one. Well, for me, I mean, the interesting question for me is, or what I'd possibly like to put to you all or ask you is, what's your response when a theist says that you have to read it to understand it? Because for me, the key question about religion and etc. is the claim that it's God's word. It's for me, it's non-fiction. It's a non-fiction book written by man. But obviously, when you get into the conversation with theists and they say you just have to read it to when I question them, how would you know it's God's word? Where is the evidence that it's God's word?
Because the Bible says it is. I mean,
the funny part is that in the Bible, God states that He is not the author of confusion. So, how many thousands of Christian, sects we have?
Yeah, and look at the fact.
Confusion, but there's all kinds of confusion around us.
Yeah, and even Coach Dave. I watched that Coach Dave Dobenmeyer show or whatever his fucking name is.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's a guilty pleasure. It's called Pass the Salt. He even said if you get 37 Christians in a room, right, not one of them can agree on what the Bible, anything in the Bible about Christianity, right? Which
they'll disagree on some.
Yeah, they'll disagree on a lot of shit, right? Which, if something is supposed to be literally the truth, it would state this, not up for interpretation.
I came up with
Sorry about that.
a thought experiment. And it's very, very simple. There's a small Baptist church where I live, and it's full of old people that have gone to this church for maybe 30, 40 years. Now, if you go to that church, that little Sunday school class, and you say, does God love? Universally, no matter what, you're going to get yes. Now, if you pull them off to the side, and this is the same Sunday school group of people that have been together for 34 years, and you say, how does God love? What does God do to love? Now, you're going to get completely different answers according to their own personal experiences and their own understanding of God. Right? The answers are going to be all over the place.
There's something I want to say that Steve McRae posted on Twitter about this subject. If God is self-evident, then why do people spend so much time trying to convince other people he exists?
I was just about to say that.
Well, because some of us just want to deny Jesus and deny God and sin, and and like have sex with hookers and do drugs and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. To just real quick, I'm going to give my 2 cents on what Forrest was asking. For me, it's just like some of the fucking statements that it makes. I'm sorry, but if you want to be a Bible literalist, at least where I live at, in Vermont, for the time being, if you want to be a literalist for the Bible, for me, yeah, you have to believe that the earth is 10,000 years old. Everyone in this room knows that that's not fucking true. Just as an example.
It's 11,000.
There
was also over 6. So
I actually wanted to tell been wanting to tell what's your name compiled atheist about something about a channel that is very similar to what you do. It's called Milwaukee Atheist. And they basically talk a lot about this stuff, the adoptionism, the Arianism, and they talk about all the stuff that is in the Bible, the evolution of the entire Christian religion, and the everything that's extra biblical that relates to the evolution of the Christian religion, basically.
Okay. Yeah, and Dallas Wade, do not look at his channel. Dallas Wade. Okay, I hate him. He is my nemesis because he's younger, better looking, has a deeper voice, and actually has better videos than me.
Sorry,
that was me. No.
This is not an endorsement. Dallas Wade is the worst. Yeah. Do not go to his channel. Forrest, I do kind of want to answer your question in my own way. When Christians say, well, you have to read the Bible to understand it, I have read the Bible at least 50 times straight through, and I study it every day, and I've done it for almost 40 years now. Oh, geez, I'm old. The thing is, no matter what, if you say anything that disagrees with what they're going to say, well, you're not filled with the Spirit and you just can't understand. And the thing is, I always go back to the story of Adam and Eve. Satan was in the garden and tempted Eve, and it caused original sin, and they ate an apple and all this. Okay, the problem is it was not Satan; it was a snake. And it's very specific about that. If God wanted us to know that it was Satan, he would have very simply put it was Satan. It wasn't an apple, and there was no concept of original sin. That was actually first brought up by St. Augustine in the City of God about, I think it was 580, I want to say 583 AD or CE. But when Constantine wrote the City of God, that's where we actually get the concept and idea of original sin. It's also the City of God is where we get the idea of free will. So what my point is, with free will and original sin and a lot of these concepts, they are read into the Bible according to one's indoctrination. So a Christian reading this actually reads into the Bible a whole lot of crap that actually is not there. So what I say is they are not actually capable of interpreting the Bible because of the things that they read into the Bible and assume is true. And I've spent my entire life trying to understand where I actually read all those things into the Bible due to my indoctrination.
But my point is, do we need to know what's in the Bible in order to believe in it?
I say it doesn't matter. It does not matter. And this is the reason why. For example, we know for a fact that the Septuagint was the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. And when they translated from Hebrew to Greek, they kind of changed the meaning of a word. In Hebrew, there was a word, young woman, and when it was translated into Greek, it became virgin. Now, Bible scholars all over the world completely agree that this was a mistranslation. However, if you talk to any Christian, there was a virgin birth, and it's written right there in the Bible. And most Bibles actually use the word virgin. However, that is a mistranslation, and everybody every scholar knows it's complete crap. It's a mistranslation. However, it does not even matter to Christianity. No matter what, there is a virgin birth, and even though it's proven that that was a mistranslation, the foundation of the religion is built upon a virgin birth.
But if J.R. Tolkien pronounced he was God, would we believe it? I mean, the key question is, because the book claims it's the word of God, does that justify believing it?
Well, actually, if you've read Tolkien, it might be pretty close to true.
Well, there's something.
Wait.
Okay.
Would you please stop using logic?
I know.
Stop using logic with
well, when you talk about, there's a lot of Christians that think that if you're an atheist, that you pray to Richard Dawkins, and I mean, some people literally believe that, like pray to Richard Dawkins, or who's the guy? Not Neil deGrasse Tyson. Who's the guy that Carl Sagan, or all these other people?
Wait a minute, we're not supposed to do that. I've got a shrine right here to Dawkins, right over.
I spent a lot of time and money.
You're supposed to pray to Dawkins.
Darwin, right here, Darwin.
Well, it's the Trinity: Darwin, Dawkins, and Christopher Hitchens.
If you guys would
not
ever
necessarily in that order,
and understand that Lemmy Kilmister is actually God, then I think the world would be a much better place.
Yeah.
People refuse to understand this.
That gives me a random idea for a live stream where we do a seance to Christopher Hitchens and just put in clips of Christopher Hitchens.
I want to do that. I want to do that.
I'm in.
We just kind of like ask and show a Ouija board and ask Christopher Hitchens certain things and just throw in a clip.
Yeah. Awesome, I'm in.
Yeah.
I had a few.
Dark room. Gotta have some candles. And you gotta have
one of us has to pretend we're possessed.
Yes.
I've been told that a few times by a couple of ex-wives.
Are you familiar with George Orwell?
Yeah.
1984, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I read that in 9th grade, and that was a mind lifter in a lot of ways, because you can apply a lot of phrases and things within that book to society. Mm-hmm. And the biggest one is doublethink, keeping two opposing ideas in your mind as both being true, even though they conflict. And people are so good at that. Just watch the White House.
I have one of my Reverend Faithful videos, and I'm pretty sure at some point in time when it's noticed that my channel is probably going to get shut down for a bit. Have you guys heard of the third wave experiment, where the teacher basically tricked his students into fascism? And anyway, I make the comparison of fascism and religion, and I kind of happen to look a lot like Hitler and say and do a lot of things like Hitler in that particular video. But you're absolutely correct. There are a lot of things, like in the Orient, George Orwell pointed out, that actually align directly with religion.
Yeah. There was something I was going to say about what was going on. So I'm also a transhumanist, and that means that, you know, we believe the idea of how should I say, that humanity or whatever should one day transcend the human element or whatever. And it's kind of a weird position to believe in, but it's also a position where, you know, there's a lot of false information about it. But one of the things that comes up is that you basically have anything can happen in any given amount of time. So, and with our knowledge of biology, what we know of how aliens exist in this universe, there's an element where you can have an alien that's reached that point where it's no longer definable between in any you know realm that we consist of, come in, figure out our language, do all this, and then say that it's Yahweh. And, you know, you have the element of, do you even know if this is really Yahweh or not? Do you know what this is? And there's also the element where Christians won't believe it at all.
Carl Sagan and Christopher Hitchens both hit on that. And basically they said if there's some technology that was so completely out of our context that we would not understand it, that it would be very easy to consider that to be God.
That was who the heck said that? Oh, I can't think of it right now. But that was another science fiction writer. It will come to mind later. But
was it Carl Sagan or Christopher Hitchens, or did they simply repeat it?
Repeat it. They're repeating. Arthur C. Clarke.
Yes. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I
used to live in South Florida. I used to see James Randi. That came up quite often in discussions.
Yeah, that was something I got into on Twitter with somebody, with a Christian on Twitter. I was saying, you know, look, you know, if Yahweh was to exist, how would you know that it's Yahweh, even if it's telling you that? You know, how would you know what it is? Because it could basically be lying to you in any given purpose and time, and you would have no practical way to figure it out.
Well, here's a better question that I'd love to ask, and I've never gotten a good answer to. If and now it just slipped my mind. Damn it. But go, keep talking. Sorry, I'll come up.
That's not have been very important. If you can.
Okay, I got to tell you a little something about the human brain. There's a thing called short term and a thing called long term. And if it drops out of short term, it takes a while to get into long term. If you keep thinking something over and over again, you never see the transition. Okay?
Oh yeah, now I do remember it.
Yeah.
What I'd love to ask a lot of theists is if everything's a part of God's plan, and I'm usually talking to Christians when I ask this, but this is for any theist really. If everything's a part of God's plan, how is it possible that free will exists?
Exactly. Yes.
Oh yeah, so many times I've had arguments about that. People, oh no, you got preordained, you already lost free will. Done.
Free will cannot exist in the Christian theology. It simply cannot exist. I recently made a video about that. It cannot exist because
plan for me. Doesn't that make no sense at all if you have free will?
Well, the problem is if God knows everything and knows exactly what's going to happen, if he does have foreknowledge, even if I try to trick God and change my mind and change destiny, he's going to know that.
No, he already knows you're going to do that.
Exactly. So therefore, we are predestined in that theology, and we cannot have free will. Now, that doesn't mean that free will can't exist, but it cannot exist in that Christian theology.
Hey, Compelled, have you ever heard of a guy on YouTube named Fishhead Salad?
The name does not ring a bell.
Yeah, he does really wonderful videos. Personal friend of mine. He's in a funny world, but he has a video called "If There Is a Painting," and another video called let me look it up. But look up Fishhead Salad on YouTube. He does really good videos on creationism and, the whole idea of, God made me perfect, but when you talk about free will, the only answer I've ever gotten is God gave you free will to accept him or deny him. That's the only answer that I've ever gotten on the free will thing,
I took a dump yesterday, and it was all part of the plan.
Yeah.
My problem,
pretty shitty, but whatever.
My problem with this is that Christians will claim free will, but then they'll say, well, about heaven, but then you have a problem with the elements of heaven where there is no practical free will in heaven at all. And you have the argumentation where, are you really even yourself if heaven exists and you're in heaven?
Here's the problem. How many times are you told you're learning shit here for a perfect heaven?
Yeah.
Right.
And heaven has no death, no starvation, no anything. What can you possibly learn here that's applicable to heaven?
My biggest problem is my aunt and her entire family burned up on Christmas Eve. They all died horrible, terrible deaths, and they didn't even asphyxiate. They actually were trying to get out of the house and literally burned to death. So they felt a lot of pain. So how can I go to heaven and feel joy?
Yeah.
Particularly
if I know maybe they weren't Christians and they went to hell.
Yeah, I think Prophet Azad did something on this years ago where he had he showed like this guy in his animation who had a son, and they were doing all this fun stuff together, and then him and his son died in a car crash, and his son was an atheist, and he went to the pearly gates and he met St. Peter, and he said, where's my son? Where's my son? This is and this and this. And then the moment that Peter says, look, he's in hell, he's like, oh, no big deal. He denounced God, this and this and this, whatever, that's him. And he just completely changed.
Was that Prophet of Zod or Dark Matter 25?
Yeah, that was Prophet of Zod. Dark Matter might have done something on it, but I think Prophet of Zod did that.
Well, you know what I find really, really odd, and I'm just going to be blunt here. The theist zealots, as I'll call them, because I want to blow the brush a little bit. The theist zealots that actually want to go to heaven, in my personal opinion, are some of the douchiest fucking people I've ever met in my life. So if heaven doesn't exist, I don't want to fucking go there with them.
Yeah. If heaven was real, I wouldn't want to fucking be there. I mean,
sounds fucking boring, especially with douches.
Well, and there's kind of certain elements where science is more likely to basically prove everything that they dream of in heaven. It's basically the element with death. It's likely it's extending life to the point that there's going to be some point where you can't really predict when people are going to die in certain generations. And I already start to think that with my generation that you can't really get a good hard line on when the general part of my generation is going to die off. And then you have an element where, like I said, science is basically rolling back death and making it harder to die. And here you have religion saying, oh, you'll live forever, but there's no evidence of it happening. So practically everything that they say would happen in heaven without God and without, with the notion of free will is more likely to happen through science than it is through religion. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and being the kind of Semitic guy that I am, why can't heaven just be right here?
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say.
Ooh, baby, do you know that word? Ooh, never mind. Hey, Compelled, I put 2 links to a couple of videos. I think you might really like. The first one is the one that. Now it's really graphic, but it makes a big point.
Do we agree that this is kind of an echo chamber? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Almost.
So,
Forrest, I'm going to be honest with you. I try to get theists on here, and they never want to come.
Hey, I don't. See, a lot of people like Compelled, and I understand why people debate, religion, which I think is totally. I mean, I understand, some people do it, and they can deconvert people or whatever. I make fun of it, literally, because most of the people, no matter what you say to them, it's not going to change their mind because la 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 la, So I just make fun, and I've had people go, you're making it hard for people that really want to have a real discussion about religion. And I'm like, well, it's all bullshit. I mean, it is what you want it to be,
There is no real discussion about religion because religion is not real.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, when people get into this morality shit, where do you get your morality from? I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Look what's going on today. What morality? What the hell morality? Doesn't matter what that shithead does in the White House.
Yeah, well, look, I was told years ago that I didn't have a moral barometer, or my moral barometer was broken. And by golly, they're right. I have a broken moral barometer here.
Okay, so when I came out as an atheist to my wife, and we had been married 17 years, and I explained it on my channel why I came out. It had to do with my son being called out at school and sent to the principal's office because he told his teacher he was an atheist. And he was literally sent to the principal's office. So I had to come to his defense, and I had to come out. And my wife came home, and she heard about that story, and she blew up. Particularly when I told her, I was like, well, yeah, I'm an atheist. Now, the funny thing is in 20 years of marriage, that's the only argument I ever won. And the reason is I looked at her and I said, honey, we've been married 17 years. Because she went off on the tirade of, well, you have morality. You think you can just go screw anything you want to, blah, 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 blah. And she just went off on a tangent. And I said, honey, the only difference between now and 5 minutes ago is that that I do not actually believe there is a God. I'm the same man that I used to be, that I was 5 minutes ago. And actually, she just shut up. She didn't know what to say.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of cool, man. I mean, at least she's not willing to divorce.
Well, you did get your moral principles, though, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, my late wife, that's how she eventually became an atheist. Besides other things that happened in people's lives, because she used to say, she watched her family and how they react and how they would talk after they got out of the church. All religious. As soon as you go, okay, we're good again for the next week, and then we'll go repent again next week.
Praying on Sunday, sinning on Monday.
Especially the Catholics and stuff. That's I've done my thing, said my Hail Marys. I've sinned. Blah blah. Forgive me. And she says, "Here you are, no religion. You act more religious than they do."
That's kind of like some of these religious people watching porn. They sit back there, they watch porn, they jerk off to it. Then the next thing you know, they're in the confessional with the priest talking about how they had porn. How they were watching
They
porn.
watch it for research. I've actually
And they do it and they do it every day.
Yeah, I've actually heard of fundamentalists that they're fundies that'll. Yeah, I've watched porn strictly for research. You know?
Nice.
I mean, even Pornhub, they want to see what debauchery goes on in the internet.
Hey, nothing wrong with learning new techniques.
There is a serious problem with it, because I will tell you this: as a gay man, I would watch porn all the freaking time, and I would basically be shaming myself over this sort of stuff. And
why? For watching
porn? Yeah, for watching gay porn. And then, like, I would be like, wanting to say, well, this is sinful, this is whatever, when I was a Christian, and saying, I should go to whatever. But I was so shaming myself that not even going to the priest and telling the priest that they always watching gay porn was even something. But they legitimately shame you into this sort of into this sort of stuff, and it's fucking sad.
I have a family member that came out as gay in the 80s, or very early 80s, and another family member of mine, my mother actually, and my sister was, the family member, whatever, was the only like real religious person in the house that went to church and things like that. Well, they sent my sister to the church under false pretenses, and first thing she knew, she was in this room with about a bunch of the elders from the church, and they told her that until she left, before she left, she had to repent her homosexuality, or she was never allowed to come back to their church. So she just said, "Well, fuck off," and hasn't been back since. I mean, she still has spirituality, she believes in something, and stuff like that. And I don't argue with her about that, but she was literally the only, besides my parents, the only one real religious-y person in the house, and they shit on her. And that was back in the 80s. But
does she understand Jesus does their loving for them, so they don't have to?
And who hasn't pulled one off after watching some porn? And
it's just
shameful after that. You know what I'm saying?
What amazes me is I hear so much about God is love, God is love, God is love, and as a Christian you should love. And as soon as you step outside of their boundaries, there is literally hateful, very hateful things that are said and believed. And I was one of them.
Yeah, compelled. I can go fucking off on that. I mean, the reason I attack religion, and most make fun of it, but the reason I attack, at least on my YouTube channel, is because, and I'll give you a prime example. My father is an alcoholic. He recently fell off the wagon after being, I think, 5 months sober, and unfortunately for him, most of the 12-step programs down in Delaware.
God.
Yes, are unfortunately religious. He's desperately trying to find a kind of a rehab place, and he can't because every single program near him is 12-step, and we all know, most of us in here knows that.
That really works.
This was what I was getting into with Telltale on his video. I was commenting on his video, and I had 88 likes on it. Is basically like AA is just a cold turkey submission program. It's not even. It's whether it's for drugs, whether it's for drugs, or it's for smoking, or it's this. It's just a 12-step. It's just It's just a cold turkey submission program. That's all it fucking is. It doesn't even. Sorry about that, Grampy. It doesn't even teach you. It doesn't even teach you any mental capabilities on how to work yourself off of it. It doesn't do any of that shit.
No, and I was going to continue more here about to what Compelled said about Christians say that God is love. No, at least in the Christian theology, it absolutely is not, because there's a proposed law in Texas right now that would allow doctors to turn away LGBT patients. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, well, the whole thing. Yeah, now I lost my train of thought.
Oh, fuck, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I will get you for it.
Yeah, but to the Christians out there who keep coming at least at me with that bullshit about our God is love, fuck off. Because from what I've seen, just
if God is love and all loving, if God is all loving, that means continuous. There cannot be a hell.
You ever notice a lot of religious people, God seems to have the same political views and world views as they do?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And as a bisexual man, it pisses me off.
God wants everybody to have an AR-15. You know?
The best example of that is to watch the Pope. Whenever there's a new Pope, all of a sudden God changes his mind.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing. This Pope we have now, okay, he's not Ratzinger. I get that, because this guy wasn't part of the Hitler Youth. But when he first came in, he was the Pope of change. He was the Pope that was going to, clean. And it's coming out now that he's I don't know, maybe not as complicit with hiding, because they're still hiding sex pervert priests. They only bring them out when they get caught, right? Or and his stance on homosexuality again has changed. Thank goodness atheists are allowed to go to heaven. The last I heard, but it's just, and the longer he's been in, the more you see his Catholic side coming out, the more of his, goodwill, being everybody, the friendly guy, that if people were like, oh, he's a progressive Pope, it's like, no, he's Catholic,
One thing that needs to be understood about the Catholic Church, and I have done some fairly extensive studies on the Catholic Church, the papacy, or the position of the Pope, is a political position.
Yeah.
It is not a religious position as it's thought of. It is literally a political position, and that's how they are elected to become Pope.
Well, they have to pray about it, though,
Actually, no, that's a funny thing.
What about the conclave?
I have read so many things about the history of the Catholic Church, and whenever a Pope, whenever these books, and I'm talking volumes of books and series of books, the one thing that has interested me the most and shocked me the most is whenever they talk about, the historians talk about how the Catholic Church chooses a Pope, the one thing that is not mentioned ever is prayer or any miraculous writing on the wall or anything. Is always about politics and positioning. Never once have I seen one documentation about a bunch of bishops getting together and praying about it. Not once. And that disturbed me.
There's something I wanted to say on that too. I learned this through, discovering it, even though I was a Roman Catholic too when I grew up and then became an atheist. The one thing is I learned that you could basically be a layperson and become Pope. Pretty much. They can elect a layperson to be Pope, or basically.
Well, there you go.
Priest, they can elect whatever. They just, the only thing that differs is that they tend to elect cardinals, which are actually just the same stance as archbishops, to the papacy, because they agree upon these people, but they can basically elect anybody to be in the papal position.
Yeah, but do they? That's the bottom line.
No, they don't.
There we go.
And I was going to ask a question about the Catholic Church too. What's your guys' opinions on the Catholic Church's handling of this pedophile abuse that's been going on for centuries and stuff like that? That they keep BSing about, that they keep doing bullshit about.
They're not gonna fucking do anything. We all know it.
Yeah.
Well, to me, it's no surprise at all.
They're gonna try to let it go away. They're gonna do as little as possible so people think they're doing something.
Yeah.
And then
what's very, it's once again, it boils down to politics. And the one thing is, the Catholic Church is in the limelight right now concerning this, but it is endemic to every religion, every Protestant religion. Everyone tries to cover it up. It's the Catholics right now that have been caught, but the Baptists will come along, the Presbyterians, the Methodists, whatever.
Look at these youth pastors.
Jehovah's Witnesses, the same thing.
Oh yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses. People are going after them, but look at these youth pastors they have, right? You know, some guy. You know, how many of those have been, busted, that's my,
What's sad is that the Catholic Church will play it off like it never happened. And then you can go back and then see movies from like 40 years ago talking about this shit happening.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll play it off like, oh, this is recent. This just happened like, last month or something like that. There wasn't something going on 40, 50 years ago. And then you have this movie that talks about sexual abuse that the Catholic Church did in the fucking 17th century.
Oh, yeah.
What I find disturbing to me is that the focus is on the Catholic Church and not religion.
Right.
Because it's that way with all religion too, yeah.
What it boils down to is when a person is in a position of authority, then they can exert that authority and manipulate the parishioners.
Right.
Well, all right, I gotta go, guys. I gotta go.
We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, you guys have a good one.
I'm gonna check out your channel.
All right.
Hey, can I respond to what he just said? Kind of, when they tell people, I mean, I was going to ask, I didn't know how old he is, but he seemed like he was a bit older than some of the people in here. But I remember if something happened, right? If you reported it to, they would say, "Oh, you got to report it to your pastor, or a police officer or somebody," right? And the first thing they would do is tell the parents, or especially even if it was the parent that was doing something, right? And the big thing was, well, what goes on behind closed doors is nobody's business. Well, that was before a lot of laws came into effect, right?
I wanted to say this, me being the ex-Catholic, basically, that I know that from what I've heard, the Catholic Church was like, you need to tell a priest, and then they would get into a legal problem where they had these, where they had the priestly vows, which state that they cannot report this they cannot report anything that is said in the confessional to the authorities.
Yeah.
And what would happen is that you had people who were raped, that were molested, that were all this and that and whatever, by people who were in the church or by priest who reported it to the priest. The priest didn't say shit about it to the FBI. Then they went to the FBI and reported it, and they were finding out that the priest was not. He knew about it, but they were the archdiocese or whatever was telling them, you can't do this or else you'll get expelled from the diocese.
Or they just transfer them.
Yeah. And that's basically what was going on, and there was some suits about that too in other countries.
Yeah.
With that sort of bullshit happening. But yeah, the Catholic Church is just a mess and a half. It's
well, a lot of religious places are, because they have that, they don't want that stain, right? They don't.
Yeah. Well.
And even in a church where something like that happens, the first thing, even if that person was a big member, they'll distance themselves from that motherfucker, right? And then promise to pray for him, but won't defend the victim, right? I mean, just recently there was another girl who was raped by a preacher or something, and she was told she had to apologize in church to the preacher's wife for letting the preacher rape her.
Oh, I saw that.
When was this?
Yeah, as he was choking her to death, she didn't put up a fight when she lost consciousness.
Yeah.
They think it was last year.
Yeah, or you're scared, You know, you don't want to say anything because these are people of power. You know.
And what's worse with the Catholic Church, with the priestly vows, is that they've had scientists over decades show that men who are like separated from society, as far as sexual relations go, people who are celibate for a long period of time, they had psychological studies done, and this was done on people in prisons, but it could be applied to the Catholic Church too, was that the people in prisons who were forced to be celibate started raping other men in the prison system. And they started figuring out, well, this is also applied to the Catholic Church, but again, it's the element of the dominancy element that y'all talking about. So it's both both the issue where they're having verified science saying that that being celibate is going to cause you to do whatever, and they're having that dominancy element added to it as well.
This them get married again, like they used to.
Well, they never. That was part. It's always been part of the priestly vows to not marry.
No, it hasn't. No. In the beginning,
it was because they had property.
The only reason they did that is because whatever property that he would get, would become his family's, his wife's. They keep it in the family. They stop families.
Oh shoot! I guess I was putting to it too much.
You go back to what this all comes from, the Jewish religion.
Yeah.
To be, a rabbi, you had to be married.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this has been an awesome hangout. Unfortunately, I do have to kind of cut it because it's 11:12 where I'm at, and I have to get up at 6:30 to go to work. So
don't say no 4-letter words around me, please.
Sorry.
Work.
But I will allow everyone to plug either their own channel or someone else's channel if you feel like that. We'll go with Force. Force, you still with us?
Yeah. Is it going to finish now, the stream?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm going to cut the live stream as soon as everyone gets done plugging themselves or their channels.
Okay. Is anyone carrying on the chat on another stream?
I don't think so.
Drops it. This stays open.
Yeah, the thing stays open. Just the live streams. Just
okay. No, I've got nothing to plug or anything like that. I'm good. It was nice speaking to you, Atheist.
Oh, you too. You're welcome on my channel anytime. Grampy?
Yeah, I got Grampy Lobster at Lobster Ministries. I'm a Lowe's farmer. I make fun of fucking stupid people and religion. And either subscribe to Grampy Lobster for the lulz or don't. It's up to you.
Okay.
And subscribe to Fish Head Salad if you haven't. Great videos. He doesn't put a lot of them out there, but
Iris?
Please don't get mad at me, but I have an Instagram now, and I post most of my artwork on there. Not everything, just most. So if you want to look at my crappy stuff, you can.
Hey.
Nice. Paul?
Nothing yet.
Okay. Pikachu?
Yeah, I basically am trying. Well, right now my MacBook is got to be repaired, but I'm trying to start setting up to do face work and doing more video cam sort of stuff. And I have a green screen and some other things. I'm trying to save up money to get a lapel mic, and I'm basically wanting to try to have my setup kind of similar to what H Bomber Guy and ContraPoints has for their background elements, but then add in the religion, the debunking religion and debunking certain elements in religion and politics and shit like that. But however, I also this past week wanted to say something else about this. I had a kind of not a very good shout out, but kind of a shout out from the Utah Outcast. And what happened was last year I posted a video about this guy who basically said that Christians shouldn't celebrate Halloween or Christmas or any of this other shit. And I was going on saying, well, your religion has, took all these or whatever. But I posted that on Reddit, and the Utah Outcast found it on Reddit, around that same time. And then like this past week, they spliced up their Patreon show that they do and for that month, and they posted that video on YouTube. And I didn't get to see the Patreon show because I'm not a patron of them, but I got to see the YouTube upload, and I was like,
you can watch their video, you can watch their Patreon hangout without being a patron. You know that, right?
Oh, you could?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Subscribe to me, but somebody showed me a link that you can get into, like these Patreon hangouts.
Yeah. Well, it's a Patreon, stream or whatever, and they had posted the stream back in October of last year, but they finally just came around cutting up the stream and then posting it on YouTube, and that's where I saw it at. Oh. And I was like, oh, cool. They gave me kind of a shout out. At first, I didn't know what they were talking about, but then they kind of gave me a shout out, and they said, I'm kind of rambling on.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of who the Utah Outcasts are. I've been talking to them for a while, but anywho, yep. And last but not least, me. Of course, I'm the Atheist Ranger. This has been my March sub hangout. I'm just a little announcement. I don't know if there will be an April one because I'm recently at least trying to get a second job. That's number one.
Well, Google's getting rid of this shit.
Well, yeah, that's trust me. For me, that's going to put a hurt on my viewership. Trust me.
I don't know. I don't know if they're getting rid of Hangouts though. They might be. Who knows? They're getting rid of Google Plus.
Right.
Yeah.
Does anybody know anything about OBS or Streamlabs?
No.
Okay, I've had somebody. I'm trying to get on Streamlabs or OBS. I had somebody help me up with a setup, and then I tried to do something with it. I fucked it up totally, but I have a green screen too now, and I'm trying to reconfigure some stuff and change my format up to more of the news and than just making fun of Von Helton, Fat Elvis, and occasionally making fun of religion shit,
Yeah.
But,
the second announcement is because literally next Wednesday, I will be getting a vasectomy, and we all know that takes quite a few days, if not a few weeks to recover. So
yeah, you won't be able to pull one off.
So you're gonna be in the shitter like I was for 2 weeks in that goddamn hospital where they have fucking religious people coming up to you every day. That's communion wafers.
When I was in the hospital,
told me that it's going to take 3 to 5 days for me to at least go to work, but I know even at work I'm still going to be limited.
Yeah. When I was
I
in the
hope
hospital,
everything goes well.
Yeah, I hope so too, dude.
When you talk about like an atheist in a hospital with people coming around, the first time I was in a VA hospital out here in Rhode Island, I mean, it says